Welcome to Fanshawe College's television studio, and thank you to Fanshawe College and their television production and broadcast journalism programs for partnering to put on this debate. This debate is for the London Fanshawe riding, and there are 9 confirmed candidates. They've all been invited to take part in this debate. I'm your moderator, Brona Morgan, host of LDN ONT TV on Rogers TV. Full disclosure, I have run in previous elections, but today I'm representing Rogers TV. All the questions that will be asked have been reviewed by Rogers TV to ensure that they are fair and not biased. Joining me in asking questions today is Mike Lacasse, a student in the broadcast journalism program here at Fanshawe College. There are 7 candidates joining us today, and they are Zack Ramsey from the Green Party, Paul Plum from the Consensus Party, Adriana A. Medina from the New Blue Party, Ziba Hashmi from the Liberal Party, Teresa Armstrong from the NDP, Stephen R. Campbell from the None of the Above Party, and Dave Durnan from the Freedom Party. Jane Kovarakova from the Progressive Conservative Party, and Doug MacDonald from the Ontario Party were invited to the debate but will not be attending. We will start with 1 minute for each candidate for an opening statement. We will then move into questions from myself and Mike, where each candidate will get 1 minute to answer the question. 30 seconds may be given for a rebuttal at mine or Mike's discretion. When we're finished with the question, each candidate will then have a chance to make a closing statement. Numbers are drawn prior to the debate to determine seating and the order of opening statements. We will go in reverse order for closing. And for each question, we will start with the next candidate in line each time. Let's get started with opening statements. And just a quick reminder to the candidates and everybody watching, Fanshawe has a mask policy in effect. So when you're not speaking, make sure you put your mask back on. Thank you. Zack Ramsey for the Green Party, you're up first. 1 minute for opening statement.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs for joining us here today. I'd like to take a moment to thank unions and labor organizers for the weekend that we just enjoyed. I am a Londoner, born and raised. I've worked over a dozen jobs in London. I started off at age 16 as a lifeguard. I've been a hockey referee, a hotel front desk. I've worked in the LCBO. I've worked at a grocery store, and many more. And through these experiences, I've seen London's workers and I've seen their exploitation. I've seen how they're treated and I've seen how they're not cared for by their employers across the board. The Green Party hopes to change this. If we don't take action now, we'll settle for nothing later. And if we settle for nothing now, we'll settle for nothing later. Thank you.
Thank you, Zack. Now we'll hear from Paul Plum, the Consensus Party candidate.
My name is Paul Plum. I'm with Consensus Ontario. We want to get rid of all the political parties, including ourselves. Why? A very wise man once said, "No man can serve 2 masters." If you elect any person that belongs to a political party, they have 2 masters, the public and their party leader. If you vote for me, the public majority is my master. Remember the Emergency Measures Act? Trudeau told the Liberal caucus to vote that in, and they said, "Yes, sir," and did. Singh told the NDP to vote with the Liberals, and yes, sir, they did. In our riding, Lindsay Matheson's constituents overwhelmingly pleaded with her on Facebook not to vote that in. She obeyed the party leader, her master. The best government is when the people tell politicians what they want and the politicians then work for that. Please, let's get rid of the power-hungry political parties. Vote for me, Paul Plum. The public majority is my master.
Thank you, Paul. Opening statement from Adriana A. Medina, the New Blue Party.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching this important political debate. This is the first one for me. I'm not a career politician. My name is Adriana A. Medina, and I came to Canada along with my family 18 years ago and left my native country of Colombia to seek a better life for myself and my family. I thought I had made the right decision. Canada, as you know, is a beautiful country blessed with many resources and wonderful mix of people. But the last few years, particularly the last 2 years, have seen an erosion in our way of living. Together we are strong and can rise up against this tyranny. Our freedoms squashed, our voices silenced, and our lives forever changed. I believe that the government overreach and mandates that make no scientific sense and the tactics that left our country divided and many people suffering economically, socially, mentally, and spiritually are not working. That's why I believe in the New Blue Party of Ontario and their leadership, Jim and Belinda Carajalios, everyone working together for you.
Thank you, Adriana. Next, we'll hear from Ziba Hashmi, the Liberal Party candidate.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ziba Hashmi. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of 3 grown children. I'm the daughter of seniors, and I'm a community enthusiast. I am a community advocate. I've worked on different boards and committees within the city, and I am excited about the future. My family arrived here in 1976. My father was a hardworking microbiologist, my mother the budgeter. And in the 70s, we also had my grandfather with us, who was a World War II veteran. And he would be so proud to see the work we're doing today, my family and my team, in terms of bringing affordability back and all the great policies that I am here to discuss with you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ziba. Next, we'll hear from Teresa Armstrong, the NDP candidate.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Teresa Armstrong. I am the candidate for the NDP. I have lived in London Fanshawe for many years. I've raised a family here and also went to school here. During the time as an MPP, prior to this campaign, I have worked with the community on many, many projects. We have fought to keep the Robarts and Amethyst School for the deaf and the blind open. I have held Earl's Court long-term care home accountable for their inspection failures, and also fought to keep Hydro One public. There are so many things that we need to keep working towards as a community, and I would like to continue to be a representative to fight for the healthcare public system, bringing back affordability and a cost of housing so that everyone can enjoy living in London Fanshawe. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Next, we'll hear opening statement from Stephen R. Campbell, None of the Above Party.
I'm Stephen Robert Campbell. I'm with None of the Above. I'm an independent representative, like the other independent representative that's on this stage today. But we formed a party name so that we can run under the party system set, that we get the same advantages that the party system eliminates from these other people within our government. The other thing that they've been doing for a long time now is they've been rewarding themselves. So now the rest of us need to get 5% of the vote if we want to be on an equal playing field for next year. So I encourage you to go for New Blue, the independents, the None of the Aboves, and try something different. So you can find me at nota.ca and the22movement.com and londonfanshawe.mpp.com. And I have links to all the other parties as well, because you won't see it in our media.
Thanks for that statement, Stephen. And now we will hear from Dave Durnan, the Freedom Party candidate.
Hi, and thanks for the invite to be here, and it's great to run in London Fanshawe again. The government of a free and democratic society has one job: to make and enforce laws that respect your individuality, your capacity to think and choose in pursuit of your own happiness, and most importantly, to defend you against anyone that would try, without your consent, to take your life, liberty, or property. That is the principle the province of Ontario needs to be governed by if we hope to return to prosperity. Unless government holds to that principle, it moves towards tyranny. Only Freedom Party absolutely holds to the value of freedom. And some of the parties here are moving slowly towards tyranny. The PCs, Liberals, NTB, Greens have moved, especially in the last years, to total control of your life, liberty, and property. And this has to stop. At Freedom Party, we know we're not going to win freedom at the ballot. We will win it when the voters decide they want freedom. So if you like freedom, vote Freedom Party.
And thank you to all the candidates for being here today. We're going to start off with a question that is very important to members of Fanshawe College. And that question is, what is your party offering young voters in the area of post-secondary education and apprenticeships? And we're going to start off with Paul Plum for the Consensus Party.
Interesting question. Oh. We stand for the idea that ideas come from the people, not from parties. So if you're one of my constituents, what I have a responsibility to do is to find out what you want. And the majority of the people that want something is who I will vote for, not my opinion and not the party opinion. So that's it.
Thank you, Paul. Same question for Adriana A. Medina for the New Blue Party.
Thank you. We are, as of January the 2nd, June the 2nd, provincial election, the 124 New Blue candidates were ready to cut the HST from 13% to 10% and to axe the Doug Ford carbon tax. That will make it possible for students with very low budgets, student budget and student debt to have better meals, to have better housing, and to have better opportunities in terms of moving around, in terms of making life, quality of life even better. We're also into reforming education by reducing administrative costs, introducing alternative schooling tax credits that might benefit post-secondary schools as well. We're looking forward to having post-secondary schools and groups, organizations coming to us, and we coming to them together to find a better way of dealing with post-secondary education budgets.
Thank you, Adriana. And now for Ziba Hashmi for the Liberal Party.
Thank you for that great question. As I'm knocking on doors, I'm finding that young people are more engaged with what I have to say in terms of what the party is offering. And it really makes me feel, makes my heart warm when I see our young people engaged and interested in our political process. In terms of apprenticeship, there's a plan by the party. The party is offering support for apprenticeships, and we know we need more skilled workers in our province, in our city, in London Fanshawe. And certainly, that's something that the party will be supporting. So thank you for that question again.
Thank you, Ziba. And now on to Teresa Armstrong of the NDP.
Thank you for that question. Education is power, and our next generation needs access to education. And most recently, this government canceled a lot of the grants that were under OSAP, and they became loans. We are going to reinstate those loans back to grants. We also know that financial hardship is stopping many people from getting into education. So we're going to ensure that there's no interest on student loans. The other thing that we know is students need to get out into the workforce. So co-op jobs, when people have them, they're usually not paid. So we're going to ensure that internships and co-op jobs are paid because, again, finance is an issue to education. With respect to creating more jobs, we know that there's a skilled trades workforce that needs to be skilled up, and we are going to be expanding that under the post-secondary education. We want to create good paying jobs where people can raise a family and survive and pay their bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Same question for Stephen R. Campbell of the None of the Above Party.
So back in the day when I went to school, we actually had OACs. So back in OACs, many of you go to school now and you really don't know what course you're supposed to be taking, so you jump into something, but now you got debt. Then you don't like that course, so you jump over to something. Now you got further debt. Now you got compound interest at prime plus 3 or something right there. I would like to eliminate those interest costs. We'd also like to bring back OAC because we now have full-day kindergarten. So we can actually introduce OACs so that you're not going to school before you need to go to school anymore. Learn what you really want to take before you waste that money. And I still believe you should pay for your education, but we shouldn't incur the interest debt that you're currently incurring.
Thank you, Stephen. And before we continue, I'd just like to remind the candidates that when you're not speaking, to please wear your mask as per Fanshawe policy. Now for Dave Durnan of the Freedom Party.
It's not really the government's job to make things more affordable, more of this, give you more of something for nothing. Every time somebody gives you something more, or promise you something more, they take it away from somebody to give them something for nothing. And it's the government's job to create a society, run a debt, run a government with concerns for the rights for the individual. To change a whole scale, we need a whole scale change in the way we handle money by the government. Get the government out of the road of being a hindrance. All they can do is stop you from affording something. They can't make things affordable. So individuals have the right to work towards something, and you guys work hard to go to school, to get there, to make achievements. And it should be up to you, and it would be up to you under a Freedom Party society to have the freedom to make choices.
Thank you, Dave. We're going to go to a 30-second rebuttal from Adriana A. Medina from the New Blue Party. Oh, was it Zack Ramsey?
Yeah, I don't think Zack had a chance to
The
answer
New Blue
yet.
Party of Ontario, yes.
Mistake. We're going to go to Zack Ramsey of the Green Party.
Thank you. So I'll bring up something that Green Party is doing that other parties aren't. Universal basic income, allowing you to take time off your job and go back to school at any time you wish. We're living in a changing world where 100 years ago, if you brought someone from 100 years ago to today, they'd be blown away. None of their skills and attributes are going to blend with what we have today. They're going to need to take time off, and they're going to need to learn those attributes. Universal basic incomes allows you to do lifelong learning across your entire life. So when you're 50 and we're into three-dimensional nanotechnology, you are able to take time off and learn that new technology and be able to put yourself in a more productive field inside of the workforce. As well, we want to work towards guaranteeing publicly funded tuition for all Ontario residents attending public schools, trade institutions, and universities. Education is all we have to offer. A majority of my friends and family, all we sell is our labor and skills. Education is a way to increase that skill.
Thank you, Zack. And again, my apologies for earlier. Now we're going to go to rebuttals for 30 seconds with Adriana A. Medina of the New Blue Party.
Thank you. Yes, I'm extremely worried about the education state of our riding and our province. Why? Because campaign 2000, a few years ago, was speaking about the London Fanshawe riding as having 15% of children living in low-income households. Now today, we're at that 27% of children living in low-income households. We have the second lowest educational scores in schools in the London Fanshawe riding. What has MPP Teresa Armstrong been doing for this file for the last 11 years? She's been sitting at this position of being our London Fanshawe MP.
We have a rebuttal from Stephen R. Campbell for the None of the Above Party.
So a couple of these people have offered you services, or they're going to scrap this or they're going to scrap that, but they can't balance the budget now. We're at $20 billion in debt. Some of the things like the public school system is going to be another $1 billion in debt with some of these proposals that are happening. You are $30,000 in debt per person plus your unborn child. So these free services, they're not really free.
Thank you, Stephen.
If there's no further rebuttals, I have a question from the London community. So thank you to Jennifer Dunn, Executive Director of the London Abused Women's Centre, for submitting this question. Sexual assault is one of the few violent crimes in Canada that's not declining. The pandemic has exacerbated issues of violence against women. The stories that we hear from women accessing our services are alarming. What do we do next? How will you support girls and women if elected? And we will start with Adriana A. Medina from the New Blue Party.
Thank you. This is a question very dear to my heart. As a CMHA Elgin Middlesex London support line worker, and as a mother of 4 and a grandmother to 7, I believe in awareness and education into everyone, not only girls and boys and women, and we only emphasizing on women's violence, domestic abuse. We also need to educate men and the young men that are our boys in today's world. We need to allocate resources into mental health support in schools, starting in grade 0, because we are not seeing that happening today. As I said before, the London Fanshawe riding has the highest problems in terms of mental health, addictions, and problems in our population, homelessness. I would like to work on that file very strongly because education is a big part of success for everyone, including people with mental health.
Thank you,
needs.
Adriana, for that response. The same question, Ziba Hashmi, the Liberal Party candidate.
The safety of women is very important to myself, of course, and to the Ontario Liberal Party, and the ability for women to flourish. And of course, this is a very serious problem, gender-based violence. And in the strategy, there is support for gender-based violence prevention on post-secondary campuses, and also support for organizations that provide equity in this area, equity for women. And so there is a great deal of work that needs to be done, but in the platform there is support for gender-based violence. Again.
Thanks so much, Ziba. Next, we will hear from Teresa Armstrong, NDP.
This is a very serious issue, and this violence against women, gender-based violence, is throughout society. No one is immune, whether it's economics or status in your community. We're all subject to perhaps having that happen. We need to support women who are escaping abusive situations, and that starts by funding the experts in the field, as Jennifer presented that question. Also, we need to look at affordable homes because many women escaping violence need a safe place to stay. We have geared to incomes homes so that people who need those homes, have a limited income, can access that. That's a very important piece in order for their safety and their transitioning back into independence and into the community. So if they're struggling and needing help, we certainly need to make sure the agencies are there to get them out of that violent situation. And then as they become more healthier, getting back into society and providing housing and a safe environment. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Stephen R. Campbell, none of the above party. Same question.
So the violence against women, being trapped in your home for 2 years where our representative didn't even vote to stop the emergency orders. But it's all mental health, and also the women in the first place is like preventative measures of maybe reteaching men not to be violent towards women within their home. But we need to put more funding, and also even if a woman can get out of their situation, the wait list for these women could be years. They can't even get into another home to get away from these people at this time. In the last 2 years, the violence has skyrocketed throughout our government, and our government's pretty much useless at this point.
Thanks, Stephen. Dave Durnan, Freedom Party. Same question.
Great question. And I've been involved in politics most of my whole life because of my father, diehard conservative. I became a Freedom Party member because I have a daughter. And that's when I got very active, because in most of the world, she's not free. And in Canada, in Ontario, because of the government control of your life, liberty, and property, instead of looking after your freedom, allowing you the choices, allowing the whole province to have choice, and understand that it is your choice, it is your ability to think and move forward. Where the government takes the money, makes police, makes the courts handle things like lockdowns, whether you count out in a park at the wrong time of the day. No, they have to put money back and let you control your own money. And people need to be safe. Freedom Party will allow that.
Thanks, Dave. Next, we'll hear from Zack Ramsey, the Green Party candidate.
To repeat myself twice in a row, but universal basic income, allowing people to have the income they need to escape the situation. If you're in an abusive relationship, maybe work doesn't become safe, maybe home doesn't become safe. Now you can't go to work to make an income, now you can't pay rent. Universal basic income allows you to escape that abusive relationship, get somewhere safe, get the treatment you need, and get back into the workforce if you're able to. As well, things like unionization in the workplace, getting people paid better so that they can afford the rent going on. Rent control, shout out Acorn, for lowering rents down and bringing them to a controllable level so people aren't making profits off of people in desperate situations. How much would you pay for rent if you had the option between homelessness and a home? You'd pay anything. I'd pay anything. If you told me rent was $1,500 tomorrow, I'd pay it because it's that or homelessness. Rent control, universal basic income, and unions help prevent these issues and get everyone out of these issues. Like women are especially facing this issue, and everyone, the abusive relationships go across the entire board. We all need to be protected, and these solutions do that.
Thanks, Zack. And finally, Paul Plum from Consensus, Ontario.
I believe very, very adamantly that women are the glue that holds society together. And I'm going to tell you, I see far, far too many single women with kids. The ideas that are coming from the typical political party are not solving the problem. If you really want to know the solution to the problem, you need to talk to the people in the problem and ask them what ideas they have. They've got lots of ideas. So do something about it. Vote the right way, and let's get rid of the political parties. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. We had a couple of requests for rebuttal, so we'll start with Adriana A. Medina, New Blue Party.
Thank you. And this is pertaining what MPP Teresa Armstrong just expressed about women, or I could infer people fleeing from abusive relationships and relocating them into some form of housing. But here, from her own flyer that I got a few weeks ago, we're still waiting for a provincial housing and homeless strategy. So I don't know how things are going to happen if first, number one, there's no jobs anymore for a lot of people. And then how can they pay for or can afford for housing that is not even available and attainable at this moment for most in Ontario?
Thanks, Adriana. I know that Teresa has the next rebuttal, so hopefully we can give her some time as well.
Thank you. I think making sure that you read each person's platform will help decide the housing piece. And our platform has different varying pieces, and one of them is to create 100,000 homes that will be some geared for income as well with supports. We also want to touch about mental health. We have announced that mental health isn't accessible to everyone, so we want to put that under OHIP and broaden who can treat mental health. Those are very few things that can help, but it's a very complex issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Rebuttal requested by Stephen R. Campbell, none of the above party.
There are mental health avenues that you can pursue through your doctors. If you have a doctor, I guess getting a doctor would be the first problem. But if you do talk to a doctor, they can get you some mental health that you're desperately seeking at this time. As for this 100,000 homes, where's that coming from? Where's the money coming from? Again, this is a promise someone can't keep.
Thank you, Stephen. My next question is, what is your plan for the province's minimum wage? And this question is going to start with Ziba Hashmi of the Liberal Party.
Thank you for that question. So one of the things that I'm most appreciating about the platform is it is focused on affordability. It's focused on giving people a fair wage. $16 an hour is what the party is proposing to bring up the minimum wage to. In terms of the housing issues that we were just talking about, housing is number one on the list of the Ontario Liberal Party. And we know this is an area where people are just feeling it. The satisfaction survey conducted by the City of London told us that housing and homelessness are the two major issues, and there is a plan, there is a costed out plan, and I'm quite excited about it. That works with non-profit partnerships and municipalities to ensure that we have the right, the housing for everybody, supportive housing, housing for first-time buyers, and I'm excited about this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziba. Teresa Armstrong, NDP, same question.
Thank you. So NDP has been talking about a minimum wage since I've been elected, and we did have a minimum wage policy just come into play just before the Liberals in 2018. The Conservative government removed that, and now that we're in another election, the Conservative government has now proposed minimum wage increases again. The NDP is proposing a living wage, and we want to establish that over the 4 years when we're government. So as of 2026, we would then accomplish $20. Now, we know that small businesses struggle, but there's been reports that show that employers want to do the right thing by workers. They want to give them a living wage, and that's why we will have sustainable supports and resources for small businesses to help them to that pathway to get to the minimum wage at $20 in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Now on to Stephen R. Campbell of the None of the Above Party.
I would like to try and stabilize the economy by keeping the minimum wage at a minimum wage. Every time these politicians come out every year, they raise the minimum wage, which raises inflation. You're at the bottom again. So you spent 4 years at minimum wage, you got raises, you've finally caught up with inflation a bit, and now you're at the bottom again. They're just putting you at the bottom. The biggest problem is actually in our federal government, is in 2009, they kept it at 0% for so long that now 46% of everyone is now $200 away from insolvency. It's actually probably 53% because they won't show us the numbers anymore. But you're all going into debt, and they're going to put you more in debt. The minimum wage has to stick at something, and they have to stop giving away the high $100,000 raises to the 1%, because that is actually $1,000, which is more inflation that they keep on incurring. Everything they do is cause inflation, which is not the minimum wage that is the problem. It's inflation that they've destroyed us with.
Thank you, Stephen. Dave Durnan for the Freedom Party.
I'm going to direct you to the freedomparty.on.ca website to get a full answer on this. But you got to remember, minimum wage is a euphemism for unaffordable living. Unaffordable living is caused by the past governments, the current government's policies to control all sorts of business, all income, and what they need to do is get out of the road. They need to change it back and go to freedomparty.on.ca and see our full budget there. And we need to move in the direction where people control their own lives, have more control of it. Business controls everything. We need to get out of our heads that the government isn't the answer. The government is the problem. They're the ones that created the problem. Now their problem is to deficit financing, and that's going to solve the problem. It won't.
Thank you, Dave. Now on to Zack Ramsey for the Green Party.
Minimum wage is always a difficult thing. I definitely believe that we should have a $20 minimum wage. If everyone wants to get into the weeds about this conversation about inflation, when we increase the minimum wage, when we increase the wage of employees, the employer has a choice. They can increase prices, inflation, and moving on to you, or they can take less profits. The employer sorry, my French is getting out of hand. The employers are choosing to take that profit and leave you in the dust. A way to get away from this and not worry about minimum wage at all, unionization across all workplaces. Many places are being paid $15. I'm getting $15.50. $16 is a spit in my face. And the workers need to organize together. It's shown across the entire world. We only have a weekend. We only have a 40-hour work week because of unions. If we want a 32-hour work week, if we want a 30-hour work week, if we want more workers' rights and we want higher pay and we want these rich people that do nothing to have less profits, we need to unionize.
Thank you, Zack. Now on to Paul Plum for the Consensus Party.
Here, but I operate a small business, and it's very small. I cannot hire people at minimum wage. I can't afford it. So if minimum wage is your answer, that's not an answer. You need to do what the people want you to do, but that's a complex thing to get there. Wages are always a problem. They're always a problem. The only way to solve that is for people to talk together and help people make the most that they can. Minimum wage does not help small business. Not mine, anyway. So do something else.
Thank you, Paul. And now on to Adriana A. Medina for the New Blue Party.
Before we can think about minimum wage or livable wages, as he was talking about, we need to grow Ontario's economy from 1%, which is the current one, to 5% of GDP annually, starting with taking down wind turbines to reduce electricity prices and improving productivity. Why? Because a lot of manufacturing businesses and more businesses left the province when we became the most expensive province in terms of hydro rates. We were promised by the Liberals government back in 2008 that the wind turbine new technologies would bring our hydro prices down and in turn improve our productivity. Well, guess what? Wind turbines are bringing the most waste, non-recyclable waste into our economy, and they're not bringing down our hydro prices. They're making everything less affordable. So when we get rid of the wind turbines, we'll be able to choose for a cheaper alternative and be able to help our economy by creating more jobs and better livable wages.
Thank you, Adriana. We are now going to rebuttals, starting with Ziva Hashmi. You have 30 seconds, Liberal Party.
What people need is a comprehensive plan in their lives. People have been struggling for the past 2 years. They need a comprehensive plan that supports them, so increasing the minimum wage, but at the same time offering them some kind of supports. A buck a ride province-wide. I'm sure many of you have heard of that. That's going to take a few dollars, a good amount off your monthly bill, capped at $40 per month. That's going to help our environment. That's going to take cars off our road. $10 a day childcare. That takes a big chunk of cash off people, families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziva. Rebuttal from Stephen R. Campbell of the None of the Above Party.
So what our other independent representatives said about small businesses, I've actually helped many small businesses, and many small businesses actually run extremely small margins. A lot of the shopkeepers and owners actually work tirelessly and can't afford employees at this time. Getting rid of the carbon tax and putting money back into your pocket of your hard-earned dollar would be better than to penalize the business. And you're penalizing the business because it's actually more taxation to the business for your higher wage that the government is collecting from that business. So the business can't offer a cheaper product. They have to actually increase their product because they have to pay for the increased wage.
Thanks, Stephen. And now back to Adriana A. Medina for the New Blue Party.
So in terms of Riva's buck a ride, I'm just wondering who's going to get the buck a ride. Like very few people who can take the buses in London because the routes are very difficult to match with people's work shifts and whatnot. So that's going to be very, very superficial. And number two, she was talking about the $10 a day daycare when this government needs to immediately address the ballooning wait list as NDP has proposed, but they haven't even worked on that. And they both, the Liberal and the NDP, haven't worked on that file for 20 years now. So, well, guess what? Is it gonna happen? I don't think so.
Great responses and rebuttal. Good conversation there, candidate, so thank you for that. The next question is from me. Truly, there is only one way to build capacity in the healthcare system long term, and that is through health promotion and illness prevention. What we have had, as long as most of us can recall, is a sickness care system. Be honest and be creative. What will in Ontario, under your party's leadership, do to help people who live here live healthier lives? For this question, we will start with Teresa Armstrong from the NDP.
Thank you for that question. I think everyone's goal is to ensure that they're healthy. When you have your health first, then other things can fall into place. And there is a role in prevention, absolutely. And one of the things that we're proposing is dental care. Every 8 minutes, someone goes into the emergency room because they don't have the money or the coverage to go to the dentist. That is not sustainable. So putting it under a dental care plan where households that earn $200,000 or less have access to dental care will be a very needed prevention. So to the question that's been asked, that's one measure But there are many measures, as we talked about, prevention under mental health under OHIP. When someone is having a mental health issue, they can get help as well. So there's many things that can happen to prevention, but we are proposing just a couple, a dental care plan and putting mental health under OHIP. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Next, we will ask the same question of Stephen R. Campbell, none of the above party.
So, well, the first thing I'd want to do is bring back all our healthcare workers that they've let go. These people are healthy people. Right now you have vaxxed people that are sick that are being asked to come to work while healthy people are sitting at home, and they're all our hospitals are overwhelmed with not having enough staff. And we haven't had enough staff over 20 years, let alone firing healthy workers that need compensation for or in back pay, maybe get them on the EI system for their back pay that you've denied them over the last year. But we also have mental health here in London, Ontario. When you go here in this London hospital, you're stuck in a room, you don't get health, you're stuck there for 24 to 48 hours before anybody even talks to you, sees you. It's been the same thing. We have this bell, let's talk. There hasn't been $1 spent on our mental health within our hospitals here, and it really, I've seen people in there. So I can't talk anymore.
Thanks, Stephen. Dave, Durnan, Freedom Party, same question.
Another good question. Healthcare is absolutely important. Everybody's big concern. And one thing we got to do is end these COVID mandates and all the Emergency Act, and the people that got forced out of work, allow them to get back to work. Secondly, we have to end the absolute government control of healthcare. A single-payer system came in 1969. Tommy Douglas said if it had to do all things to all people, the province is bankrupt, and it's there. The province has no money. That's why they're all deficit financing. You open up healthcare, and again, freedomparty.on.ca, it's a long program, but you allow competition. Don't eliminate OHIP. Allow people the choice of private or OHIP government suppliers and doctors. Allow people the freedom to choose. You can eliminate the cost, you can eliminate, and in fullness, when you read us, you'll even be able to eliminate income tax, any production tax.
Thank you, Dave. Next, we'll hear from Zack Ramsey, the Green Party candidate.
Healthcare is an immensely a part of our entire lives. I've known friends that would, if not for having relatives, family, and friends that cared about them, they could have had their entire lives ruined due to health. I've had a friend who was born with very few adult teeth, so his entire mouth had to be reconstructed, his jaw had to be fixed, and he was just born like that. He didn't have any choice, he didn't do anything wrong, he was just born like that and given tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt. Dental should be covered under OHIP. Mental health should be covered under OHIP. You make all of your decisions based on your mental health. If you expect to get an education, if you expect to do well in the workplace, you need to have a solid, concise mental health. I have dealt with depression and anxiety all of my life, undiagnosed ADHD, and I can tell that these things have affected the decisions I've made. And working and fixing these things have helped align me and make me a more productive and useful society, which is what everyone seems to want. And I believe that these coverages will only continue to make our labor, our workforce, our humans better.
Thank you, Zack. Paul Plum, Consensus Ontario, same question.
Everybody so far has talked about health care. And health care is, as it's been mentioned, it's super important. However, one of the biggest problems that I hear from people is I can't go to the doctor I want to. I have to go to a medical doctor. I can't go to a herbalist. I want to go to a little alternative place. They won't pay for that. The question is, if you had government really working for people and what they really want as far as health care, then you'll get rid of just doctors and big pharma and let people obtain what they really want. That doesn't come from ideas from the big parties. That comes from ideas from the people. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Adriana A. Medina, New Blue Party, same question.
Thank you. The New Blue Party of Ontario will restore dignity and transparency in our healthcare by one of our main goals is to prevent illness. So illness prevention is one of the main goals by bringing and expanding early treatment for COVID-19 and viruses and clearing the backlog of procedures by rehiring healthcare workers and offering choices in services. It is really important because as we were talking about mental health, there's really no choice for mental health patients. There is no choice for anyone basically needing treatment. Some people will have to go away to Michigan or other places to get health treatments. In terms of the free dental care and free prescriptions, like the NDP and the Liberals have been talking about for at least 10 or so like years, well, our Ontario economy is so broke that I don't think that's gonna fly as well. So probably that's not gonna happen. So that's why the new blueprint will bring you the best of all worlds.
Thanks, Adriana. Next, we'll hear from Ziba Hashmi, Liberal Party candidate.
Thank you so much for that question on preventative illnesses. I think that's so very important in terms of our healthcare, but I think we also have to address what's been happening over the past 2 years with the backlog on surgeries and on diagnostics. I mean, how many of us have loved ones who are waiting for that essential surgery or that MRI, CT scan? And so the Ontario Liberals will be ensuring that these do take place, and they'll be injecting $1 billion to clear the surgery and diagnostic backlog, $30 million to training 33,000 new mental health and addictions professionals, and many other areas, opening up new community health centers, hiring more mental health first responders, and getting more mental health professionals for our kids. Thank you.
Thanks for those responses. We have a request for a rebuttal from Dave Durnan, the Freedom Party candidate.
I just have a real question for the PC, Greens, anybody that had a candidate in the last election. You allowed the government and you backed it. You allowed Ford to shut down the hospitals for anybody except for COVID. You forced people to die because they couldn't get cancer treatment, they couldn't get healthcare treatment, and now you're going to give a solution by more government interference? We need to end the government interference.
Thanks, Dave. Another request for a rebuttal from Adriana A. Medina, New Blue Party.
Thank you. My question to MPP Teresa Armstrong, who has been my riding MPP for the last 11 years, is again, where's the money that is going to come from for free dental care or free prescription, as they have been promoting lately before election date? Where's that money going to come from, MPP Teresa Armstrong?
Well, first we're going to go for a rebuttal to Zack Ramsey, who requested a rebuttal, Green Party candidate.
A private healthcare system will decrease the waits for the rich. It will extend the waits for the poor. So you can look at your own class system. If you're extremely wealthy, private healthcare is beneficial to you and your class. If you are moderate to low income, terrible. That's all. Sorry for that.
I think we have no more requests for rebuttals.
No, thank you, Zach. I'm going to go on to the next question then. So owning a home is a dream of many Londoners, but as everyone's aware right now, that's becoming more and more difficult in the City of London. Is there a role for the provincial government to control housing costs or programs that can help first-time home buyers? We're going to start out with Stephen R. Campbell, none of the above party.
So that's a great question. I've owned multiple homes within the city. I used to buy condos at $50,000, put $20,000 into it, keep it 4 years, sell a nice, beautiful home to somebody for $100,000. Those same homes today they don't do anything to them. They're $300,000. You talk about affordability. If you try and rent that out to somebody, you'd have to give it out at $2,000, $2,000, $1,500. That's not affordable for anybody within the city anymore. And this is due to actually the federal level with inflation, with the interest rates from the Bank of Canada. It should have been moved up 10 years ago. Foreign affairs, there should not be foreign buyers within our country. If you're a Canadian citizen, you should be able to buy property within our city. Maybe there needs to be a cap at this time on how many properties you can have within a city, because a lot of people are just profiteering from other individuals on the backs of other people when nothing is being affordable. Maybe at the corporate level too, the corporate level are buying up neighborhoods so that the regular residents do not have homes.
Thank you, Stephen. Dave Durnan for the Freedom Party.
It is not the government's job or even in its ability to make anything affordable. All it can do is make laws that make everything unaffordable. What government needs to do is stop making these laws. I mean, and there's 100 different things we can get into: rent controls, uncontrolled immigration, deficit financing, mandated lockdowns, creating unemployment and dependency, outrageous zoning restrictions, the banning of granny flats, irrational regulation of home renovations. Any illusion of affordability promised by politicians is created by robbing money from somebody, giving it to another person. And this talk of deficit financing to take your money that your kids will be making and to pay for our lives now is dead wrong. It is totally unaffordable, and government can only make it less affordable. They can't make it more affordable. Get government out of business, out of your lives, except for a referee to make the courts and the cops and the...
Dave, same question for Zack Ramsey of the Green Party.
As a 25-year-old man in London, Ontario, born and raised, I've given up hopes on owning a home. I don't plan to own a home in my existence here in London. And with that, I've given up the hopes of raising a family. I personally, in my own belief, don't find it responsible to raise a kid in a situation where your housing can be taken away at any time. We've seen rent evictions, which we want to severely decrease. We've seen increases in rent going through the roof. We want to put a rent control so that renters can't have the rent exponentially increase. We can't have people buying new buildings and then just racking up for profits. We need to ensure that groups that are doing on-the-ground work actively, such as Acorn London, Acorn Canada, going around to these rental units and doing the work for the Londoners involved. We need to support these groups, and we need to make sure that rent is controlled and we get speculators out of the area. Ontario is a very safe housing market, and people from outside of Ontario are taking advantage of that and buying up the supply.
Thank you, Zack. Now for Paul Plum for the Consensus Party.
I don't have an answer for that, and I don't think anybody here does. I think the problem is that it's certainly for sure that government is not helping. If you want answers to questions, I think you've got to talk to people who are in the problem. I have a family member who about 6 months ago was kicked out of their apartment because the landlord sold the property at a $250,000 profit. That's not right. And the only way to solve that is not by government committees. They don't work. You've got to get new ideas from people at the grassroots that know the experience that they're having. That comes from people working together and giving ideas to a politician who will work for the people. That's it.
Thank you, Paul. Now we're going on to Adriana A. Medina for the New Blue Party.
Thank you. What a great question, because housing affordability is something that is probably out of control here. The low supply makes it for landlords to basically do whatever they want with rents and with selling their homes. Number one. And number two, I've been canvassing and I've been hearing a lot from seniors who are extremely worried about their own situation, housing situation coming September, coming 3 months, 4 months along the road, because the rents are being going up for, like quite steadily and highly, and they can't afford it. So the New Blueprint, in the New Blue Party of Ontario, we're offering immediate, as of June 2nd, tax relief. So we're lowering the HST from 13% to 10%, and we're axing the Doug Ford carbon tax that is making our lives so miserable, especially the seniors' lives, people who are living on a fixed income, and people who can't afford to buy food. They either have to pay the rent or buy food. So we can't afford any more of this, the NDP, the Liberals, or the PCs who are
Thank you,
even
Adriana. Now we're going to move on to Ziba Hashmi for the Liberal Party.
You know, I have 3 children in their 20s who don't want to be in debt. So it breaks my heart when I hear Zack speaking about that feeling of homelessness that hopelessness, that our youth have. And also I have senior parents who are trying to relocate in Ontario, and it's not easy for people who have put in 35 years of service, and this is what they're enduring at this point. So this needs out-of-the-box solutions. What the Ontario Liberal Party will be doing is building a crown corporation, the Ontario Home Building Corporation. This will be working with nonprofit partners, with municipalities, to make sure that first-time home buyers are able to have a chance. And again, this requires the work between federal, provincial, municipal partnerships to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziba. And now on to Teresa Armstrong for the NDP. Same question.
Thank you, and I'm sure like all the candidates here on stage, we've all been knocking doors, and I recently spoke to Nathan, and he's 20 years old. He lives with his grandmother, and I asked him, what's on your mind, some issues to chat with, and buying a home was one of the top things on his mind. So the NDP wants to get new homeowners into the market, and if you're an income earner of $200,000 or less, and it's your first-time home buyer, we are going to provide an equity loan of 10% to buy your first home. And you can pay that back through your mortgage or when you sell your home. We also, to create affordable housing so new home buyers can get in, we're going to tax speculators who purchase homes here and rent them out and don't live in London 20%, and put that money back directly into building affordable homes. And we're going to we call them missing middle homes. Again, there'd be semi-detaches or townhomes, and they can be built throughout the riding, throughout the city, and not just limited them to, attaching them to transit hubs. We have to have inclusionary zoning with affordable housing throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. We have a few requests for rebuttals right now. We're going to start with Dave Durnan for the Freedom Party. You have 30 seconds.
All right. Again, what the government needs to do is stop making everything unaffordable. Here are a few things that make housing affordable. All government policies, rent controls, irrational regulations on home, destroying property rights of landlords, ever-increasing property taxes, environmentally destructive green energy schemes. The issue of affordable housing is no longer about being affordable to the particular tenant or homeowner for whom it is never affordable. It is about affordability to the taxpayer, and it isn't.
Dave, for your rebuttal. Now on to Zack Ramsey for the Green Party.
Yes, New Blue brought up a tax decrease for housing to make it more affordable. And the question that always comes to mind is, I've seen this happen in many places. If I am a landlord and I get a 3% deduction on my tax, the idea, trickle-down economics, is that I would give it to my renter. But in reality, why would I do that? I'm just going to pocket that money, go home, and I don't know, maybe I'll save something nice. But all these savings that we give to land tax all go to the property owners, not to the renters.
Thank you, Zack. Next for rebuttal, Adriana A. Medina for the New Blue Party.
Yes, so the MPP Teresa Armstrong, she just spoke about taxing speculators. How are you going to find the speculators? Where are you going to find that information from, and how are you going to offer this to unsuspect potential voters who are just going to be deceived again? Because after 11 years, there's no such thing as a provincial housing and homeless strategy. And this, I just took it from your pamphlet. Everything I'm saying, I'm documenting it. So the New Blue is bringing actually a better economy just to provide more jobs and more possibilities for Ontarians.
Thank you, Adriana. We're going to move to Teresa Armstrong for her rebuttal.
Thank you so much. The other piece of housing is ownership is one, but there's also the rental piece. And the NDP, if I encourage you to look at the platform for a full policy, we are going to eliminate, or we're going to implement rent control so that between tenants, a landlord can't increase the rent. We're also going to close the loopholes in rent evictions, which is something that's been happening throughout the riding. We have been fighting to make sure that rents are stable, and those two ways will help people enter the rental market and have some stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. For rebuttal, Stephen R. Campbell of the None of the Above Party.
Okay, so the house used to be $50,000 here, and the same house in the market today is $300,000. When you go from tenant to tenant, it is now $2,000 to pay your mortgage payment, property taxes. It's now worth more, so you now have to pay more in taxes as well. The person that owns the home can't give you a lower rate because someone forces you to do it. And also her senior program, first home buyers, seniors already bought a home once, so they don't qualify for the program again. These people don't cost anything out, and they don't think.
Thank you, Stephen. And we have a rebuttal from Paul Plum for the Consensus Party.
I think I'm probably the oldest candidate here. I'm 77. I've lived long enough to know from personal experience, rent control does not work. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Oh,
I think we only
yeah,
get one.
we only give one.
There's only one
Yeah,
rebuttal
there's only
allowed.
one rebuttal.
Because we have a lot of important questions from our citizens, your constituents, Jessica Ashton asks, how does the government plan on getting 53,000 children with autism off the wait list? Do you have a plan to pay for the living expenses of 53,000 adults in 15 years who lost out on learning valuable tools to get a job and live independently? And we will start with Dave Durnan, Freedom Party candidate.
Again, I can only go back to the purpose of government. The government of a free and democratic society has one job, to make and enforce laws that maintain respect for your individuality, your capacity to think and choose, your pursuit of your own happiness, and to defend you against anyone who would take your life, liberty, or property without your consent. Over the past several years, I'm 60, I'm not 70, so I'm 62, I have seen the government grow to a size that is astronomically disastrous. They have taken control of everything, causing problems in healthcare, children going to school, umpteen things. All of it will be solved by getting government back to its proper purpose and creating a life where you can control your life. A government that allows you control of your money, your life, and your property.
Thanks so much, Dave. And we will next hear from Zack Ramsey, the Green Party candidate. Same question.
The Green Party hopes to make 60,000 supportive homes around social services. So these would be homes where you're both a housing first model, so you're put into a house before any other kind of metric is met, and then in those housing you're around supports close by, either in the building or within the walkable neighborhood, allowing an easier time for you to interact and be, as they say, productive in the community. The autism waitlist is astounding. I worked with the Special Olympics T-ball as a coach, and I worked with a lot of varying scales. I've worked with people, and the supports seem very minimal. It seems like at the moment, there really isn't much. It doesn't seem like there's anything to do with point of view as a supporter and an ally.
Thank you for that response, Zack. We'll move on to Paul Plum, the Consensus Party.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
To track it down, though, I've got a lot of pieces of paper here in front of me. Jessica Ashton asks, how does the government plan on getting 53,000 children with autism off the wait list? And do you have a plan to pay for the living expenses of 53,000 adults in 15 years because they lost out on learning valuable tools to get a job and live independently right now?
It's a good question, but the problem is that the beginning of that question is, why do we have so much autism? When I was a kid, there was no such thing as autism. Why do we have so much autism today? And then I'll tell you, I have 5 grandchildren that have autism. What do we do for them? I don't think there's an answer for that, except, once again, parents need to be involved in this. Parents need to answer the questions, not party leaders who think they have answers that don't work. Please consult the parents.
Thank you, Paul. Adriana A. Medina, the New Blue Party.
This is a question very dear to my heart. Thank you for the question. We will be restoring transparency and dignity into our education system by reducing administrative costs. I personally, as of June 2nd, I will be welcoming Autism Ontario and every under the spectrum group to work alongside you, and parents, alongside you and all the parents that are suffering from the neglect from government that promise too much and do too little. We are ready to give supports to every age and stage of development. It is critical for the New Blue Party of Ontario to provide life skills for our children, our young adults, and even for the adults that are already there, they're adults, and need our support to be able to self-sustain and to be as independent as possible. Or for the ones that will not be or aren't as independent, to get the supports they need immediately. I am here for you.
Thanks, Adriana. Ziba Hashmi, Liberal Party.
Thank you for that question. Currently, there are cuts and delays that have been made to the Ontario autism program by our present government, and there is a long waiting list. So what Ontario Liberals will be doing is implementing a needs-based Ontario autism program for every child, hiring 5,000 more specialized education workers and reduce wait times for school services for students with autism, implement a direct billing option for autism therapy, conduct a comprehensive reform of special education and better transition people into adult services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziba. Teresa Armstrong, NDP.
So autism has been an ongoing topic, like many chronic issues we've been talking about, and we have to deal with it in a real way. Under the Liberal government, there was a 27,000 wait list for children waiting for therapy treatment. Under the Conservative government, that ballooned to 53,000. Now, the Conservative government has increased the funding to autism, but they only used half of that. The Financial Accountability Officer reported on that. The NDP want to increase the funding so that it actually is a needs-based program, as well as have no age caps so they can transition from children's treatment to adults. Continuing the help that they need and the therapies that they need. We are going to be listening to parents, we are going to be listening to experts, we are going to be listening to people with lived experiences with autism to get it right so families can find relief. Far too often, families are mortgaging their homes, using their credit card just to get therapies, and that's not right. These are children who turn into adults that need those therapies and treatment to live their best lives and contribute to society. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Here is your opportunity. Stephen R. Campbell, none of the above Party.
So it's not just autism, it's health, mental health in general. Everything is, well, the funding did come, they did increase the funding to autism. The previous programs were, there was a huge wait list, so nobody else got it. They tried to rectify it by giving a little bit more to the other people, but then taking it away from others. But as you can, as Teresa's pointed out here, no, they didn't even use the funding to help these people. Like, I don't think we need to increase it. We need to hold the government accountable for what they're being doing. Like, they didn't get the treatment. They had the funding for these people, and they're not getting it to them. It's the government that's the problem here.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. We have a couple of requests for a rebuttal. First, Dave Durnan from the Freedom Party.
Like, how can any of these people make promises with money that isn't there? It's not about the right, wrong, it's about the proper role of government and getting back to that. And before we can make any promises, what we have to do is make sure that we make an amendment to the Emergency Measures Act. So if you enact an emergency, you trigger an election in 6 months, That way, the longest you have somebody controlling your life, liberty, property is 6 months.
Thanks for that, Dave. And Adriana A. Medina, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Thank you. Well, I'm really surprised that the NDP MPP for 11 years in the London Fanshawe riding has barely passed the Bill 11 Autism Awareness Day Act. I think that parents and Ontario Autism and every child, youth, and adult under the spectrum, which is, as Stephen said, a mental health issue, is a huge mental health problem in Ontario, shouldn't be getting this as a response. You know, this is very minimal to their needs and what they really need immediately as an action. I am ready to act. As of June 2nd, Adriana Medina, MPP for London Fanshawe.
Thank you,
elected.
Adriana. And that's it for the rebuttals. We're going on to the last question of the evening. White supremacy is a Canadian problem. It's not just a US problem. Comparing Canada to our neighbors to the south and suggesting that we're somehow kinder or better in this area is at best naive and at worst perpetuating this scourge. In light of the many tragedies that have occurred, including in Buffalo, New York, a city bordering southern Ontario, this month, and in my own neighborhood in northwest London last year, what is the role of an elected public official to change things for the better? We're going to start with Zack Ramsey for the Green Party.
A difficult topic. Freedom of speech is something that we all have tricky times on. But Canada has already drawn the line with hate speech. It's not too hard to see there's not many benefits from hate symbols. We are a creature that can create an infinite amount of symbols. We don't need to hang on to old ones that have been tarnished, ruined, or even started tarnished. I believe that the government has a responsibility to protect all of its people, and if one group is purposefully doing harm to the others, then they should be dealt with legislatively. I think that there should be laws put in place for harmings. What we say, freedom of property, and yeah. If any of that harms, I believe that there should be legal consequences to that act.
All right, thank you, Zack. Same question, Paul Plum for the Consensus Party.
I think if you talk to most people, they want freedom of speech. That doesn't mean that I should come out and tell you how terrible you are, unless you do it maybe nicely. But I think that the problem is that we have gotten it into our minds somehow or other that we should control what people think. You can't do that. Every person has a right of freedom of speech. It's in our charter. It's about time we honored the charter and do what it says. Let people speak their minds. That doesn't mean they have to commit whatever, but give them the opportunity to speak their mind. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Now on to Adriana A. Medina for the New Blue Party.
Thank you. What a great question. Why? Because right now, the New Blue Party of Ontario is working under the Reform Education by stopping woke activism with the removal of critical race theory and gender theory from our schools. Why? Because these kinds of theories have been around for 30 to 40 years in the States and in the UK, and right now they're being defaced because they have created all this extreme radicalism in youth. They are not educating or creating awareness. They are creating radicalization of children. And they're simply being defaced. I don't know why now they want to bring it here to Ontario. The NDP voted yes to Bill 67, critical race theory, and it's clearly not acting on behalf of the best interest of a child's physical, mental, emotional, or psychosocial development. It's not on the best interest of our families as well, and it's not about race. It is about terrible things that are being,
Thank you,
our children
Adriana.
are being indoctrinated.
Same question for Ziba Hashmi for the Liberal Party.
This is about people's safety. You know, having people live their lives just like everybody else. We know what happened here a year ago on June 6th. This is something that has directly impacted my community. I was a friend of Madiha Salman, sweetest person under the sun. And this should not be happening to anybody, especially, folks who look like myself, people from the Black community, people from the Sikh community, anybody out there who can be targeted for hate. And that's why we need better strategies in place. Ontario Liberals will be passing the our London Family Act, and they'll be implementing training with different organizations, with our police, and other things that we need to do in terms of bridging this gap and having people care more for each other. Thank you.
Same question, Teresa Armstrong for the New Democratic Party.
When we ignore discrimination, when we ignore racism, it festers. And we have seen what the results can be throughout the province, throughout the globe. Our London Family Act is a bill honoring the remembrance of the family that was killed in London on June 6th, the Fanshawe family. The NDP brought that forward. Unfortunately, it hasn't passed. The Conservative government didn't see fit to do that. But when we form government, we will pass that act in order to protect people from those kinds of acts and hold them accountable who do commit those acts. Education is a big part of that, our London Family Act. Also, we are going to reinstate the anti-racism secretariat that was again defunded under the current government. We want to make sure that we educate everyone about discrimination, racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia. Those things are not acceptable in society, and we all need to make sure that everyone is safe and included of where we live. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Now for Stephen R. Campbell for the None of the Above Party.
Well, we had some tragic events that did happen in London, but these hate speech and things that are coming out within our media, there's things like the Freedom Convoy, and they're saying that is hate speech. Who is the government to say what is hate speech and what isn't hate speech? And there was a hate act that happened here in London, Ontario, but in other instances, they are snowballing people into these and rolling them up within other acts that they're trying to pass through. The people that were in Ottawa were fun-loving. They love one another. There was many races there. What they're trying to whitewash or pretend that this is just a white problem, it's not a white problem. There was black, white, every creed that was there together. And right now, these governments are dividing our country in every way, shape, or form. We need to come together again as people and have respect.
And now for Dave Durnan for the Freedom Party.
The role of an elected official is in all situations is the same. Give back life, liberty, and property to the people. Where you're born, what gender you are, is not your choice. I personally believe racism is the worst form of control. Courts, police, government must be an instrument of justice to yield force when force and control are used. That is the true role of government, and we need to get back to that, to protect people's right to their life, liberty, and property. Eliminate the stupidity that's going on.
Thank you, Dave. Now we're moving on to 30-second rebuttal with Adriana A. Medina for the New Blue Party.
With all due respect to MPP Teresa Armstrong, I think instead of doing an anti-racism secretariat, I think she should better focus on providing nutritious foods in our London Fanshawe riding schools, especially in the most vulnerable areas, where children will benefit from having good food, nutritious food for 8 hours a day. And when they get home, if they have the chance, wonderful. If not, at least they're creating a foundation that is not going to be creating a different foundation for mental health problems coming along the road. Because all of these strange ideas may come from brains that are underfed, and then in their teen years,
Adriana, I'm just going to have to end that there. I know we are going to give you a chance for 1 minute closing statement because we are close to the end of our broadcast. So hopefully you'll be able to get those points out as well. We go in reverse order for our closing statements, and you each have 1 minute. So Dave Durnan, Freedom Party, closing statement.
Again, government has a perfect role to protect an individual's right to their life, liberty, and property. That's freedom. Government keeps to its role, people do their thing. We know we're not going to win freedom at the ballot box. We will win freedom when the people, the voters, want freedom. So far, I go door to door. I don't know how close we are. I know people have great disgust for the current governments. Is that enough to move us to freedom? The voters decide when freedom is. All right? We will keep putting freedom on the platform, on the ballot every time to ensure that people have a choice to have their life, liberty, and property looked after by them. If you like that, vote Freedom Party, vote Dave Durnan.
Thank you, Dave. Now, closing statement from Stephen R. Campbell, the none of the above party candidate.
As you've seen today, I'm the only candidate that will stand up for you every time you want a candidate that will stand up for you today. The rest have been sitting down. Many of these other candidates here have been standing up for you today, but in the media, you're not going to see it. Rogers Television is the only media corporation in London, Ontario that helps these other candidates be seen. They usually have it on a YouTube channel as well for people that don't have Rogers. So please share the videos to your other constituents in the riding because we are blocked and censored. This candidate here is on Google and I'm now on page 5. Now, even though if you go to MSN and YouTube, I am the #1 searched candidate in the riding, in the round. Stephen R. Campbell is #1 in the world, and you can't find me because they pay for it and it's bought and paid for.
Closing statement, Teresa Armstrong, NDP. And thank you for your statement, Stephen.
Thank you for everyone tuning in and listening to the debate. This is a very important election. We have a really serious decision to make. We know that people have been struggling with affordable housing, healthcare, and education, and so many more issues in the riding. I encourage you to look at the NDP platform. It is online, as well as we have our fiscal budget of how we're going to address the issues. Investing in people to make differences in their lives and change the way we do things is what's needed. It's not good enough to keep going from the status quo. We need to make sure that we invest in housing, we invest in healthcare, that's a publicly delivered healthcare system, and that we invest in education so our children are the ones that are going to take us into the future. So please look at the platform, and I hope to earn your vote, Teresa Armstrong for the NDP on June 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Ziba Hashmi, the Liberal Party candidate, closing statement.
I'd like to thank Fanshawe College faculty and students for hosting this debate and bringing together the candidates of London Fanshawe to talk about the important issues of today to inform viewers and the public and voters. The Ontario Liberal plan is of affordability, whether it's our Bucka-Wright transit program, introducing rent control to give renters peace of mind, raising ODSP by 20%, cutting HST off prepared food items under 20. The Ontario Liberal plan is one of jobs, such as raising the minimum wage, starting at $16 per hour, investing $10 billion in schools, building and repairing over 200 schools in Ontario, hiring 10,000 teachers, and moving Ontario to a 4-day work week, creating 1.5 million homes across Ontario, raising wages of healthcare workers at PSW, starting at $25 per hour. Ontario Liberals will cut corporate taxes for small businesses over the next 2 years hit by the pandemic. We'll give workers 10 paid sick leaves across our province. The Ontario Liberal plan is a plan for seniors, one that guarantees home care for everyone who needs it, one that ends not-for-profit long-term care and boosts seniors' pension by $1,000 more per year in the next few days. Please go out. Advanced polls are open and cast your vote. And please remember, Ziba Hashmi, Ontario Liberal Party, London Fanshawe.
For that closing statement. Adriana A. Medina, New Blue Party.
Thank you to the Fanshawe College media students and Rogers TV and our hosts for hosting me today. We have been excluded from every political debate, even though we have 124 candidates, over 124 ridings, and one MPP, Arbelinda Carajalios, at Queen's Park, which is the requirement, one of the few requirements, or the only requirements for us to be present in political debates around mainstream media. Now, from door knocking, I can tell you that this non-red tape party will bring the economy back up to 5% of GDP annually, and will provide immediate tax relief by cutting the HST from 13% to 10%, and by axing the Doug Ford carbon tax. We are also reforming our education and restoring the dignity and transparency in our healthcare. My name is Adriana Medina. I'm your London Fanshawe MPP candidate for the New Blue Party of Ontario. Thank you so much for watching, and please share this video.
Thank you, Adriana. Paul Plum, Consensus Party candidate.
May I just, I guess, reiterate what I said at the beginning. A very wise man said, "No man can serve two masters." If you elect any person that belongs to a political party, they have two masters, the public and their party leader. And when push comes to shove, you know exactly who they're going to vote for. They're going to vote with their party leader. They're going to do what they're told. That's their master. The best government is when the people tell politicians what they want, and the politicians then work for that, not the party line. Please, let's get rid of power politics from hungry politicians in political parties. If you vote for me, Paul Plum, or the Consensus Party, the public is our master. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And finally, closing statement from Zack Ramsey, the Green Party candidate.
Ladies, gentlemen, MBs, I'm Zack Ramsey from the London Green Party. The Green Party is fighting for people, planet, and jobs. Green is not just about the earth, but making the earth worthwhile. To every beautiful person that I've told throughout my life that life is worth living and that it will get better, I stand by my words and hope to present you a road to better. It has to start somewhere. It has to start sometime. What better place than here, and what better time than now? Thank you.
Fantastic responses today. Thank you so much for participating, and that does it for our time here today. Thank you to all the candidates in attendance. Thank you to Fanshawe College and their television production and broadcast journalism programs for partnering to put on the debate. I want to encourage you to get out and vote on June 2nd. And on election night, you can watch the local results on Rogers TV beginning at 9 p.m. or tune in to 106.9 The X. Thanks for watching.